The Girl Who Came Back Wrong, from 16 true horror stories, so disturbing you'll wish they were fake. She came in barefoot, soaked in blood and lake water, at exactly 2:17 a.m. The automatic doors to the ER hissed open like they always did. But instead of paramedics or someone screaming in pain, it was just her, a teenage girl, pale as paper, soaked. Her skin was scratched raw, and her feet were blackened with dirt and algae. Nurse Lillian saw her first. She'd been working nights at Mercy General for 22 years. She thought she'd seen everything, but the way this girl looked, like she had crawled out of a grave and walked for miles with no memory of what pain felt like. Something about it twisted Lillian's stomach before the girl even said a word. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She didn't say her name. She just walked in, stopped in the middle of the waiting room under the flickering fluorescent lights, and stared at the security camera near the ceiling, and whispered, "I wasn't supposed to come back." Lillian rushed to her, grabbing a towel and calling for a gurney, her hands shaking slightly. As she touched the girl's arm, she flinched. Not like she was scared, but like her body didn't quite belong to her anymore. "Sweetheart, what's your name? Were you in an accident? Do you need—" "I dug my way out," the girl said. It like it was the most normal thing in the world. Dr. Patel arrived 2 minutes later. Calm, collected, the usual. But the moment he looked into her eyes, he hesitated. Her pupils were fully dilated, no response to light, and her breathing was wrong. Not rapid, not slow. Just off, like something was imitating breathing. But hadn't quite figured it out. She wouldn't sit down. She refused the gurney, refused water. Just stood there in her soaked dress, blood and lake mud dripping onto the linoleum floor. When they tried to move her, she lashed out, bit one of the orderlies on the forearm. Her teeth weren't sharp. They were broken, like she'd been chewing. Gravel, they sedated her with 5 mg of haloperidol. It should have knocked her out cold. She kept humming, a lullaby, off-key. Over and over, when they cut her dress off to check for injuries, they found more than bruises and cuts. Lake mud. Packed. Deep under her fingernails, inside her ears, in her mouth, and stitched into the inside seam of the dress, so small it had to be done with a needle fit for embroidery, were 5 words. She was not meant to return. They logged her as a Jane Doe and moved her to a secure psych observation. Room on the 3rd floor. By morning, the orderly she'd bitten was running a high fever. Doctors said it was a bacterial infection from her bite, maybe something in the mud. Within 48 hours, he was dead. But that wasn't the worst part. His body was found in his apartment, mouth open, pale as ash. His ears were filled with lake water. Lillian couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the girl's eyes. Not the color. They were a sort of stormy gray. But the way she looked, like she was watching from somewhere very far away, like she wasn't really in her body. 3 nights later, Lillian came back for her next shift. Checked the security feed before clocking in. At 2:14 a.m., the girl had stood up from her bed and walked to the window. At 2:16 a.m., the camera froze. At 2:21 a.m., the girl was gone. No alarms. No one saw her leave. Her door had been locked from the outside. Her bed was soaked, but not in sweat, in cold black water, thick with pond scum and little pieces of crushed shell. On the window was one word, written in the condensation. Why? Police were called. They found nothing. No fingerprints, no broken locks. The window hadn't been opened. The security footage was scrubbed. It glitched out just as she vanished. The file was sealed. The case marked as unresolved psychiatric incident. The hospital moved staff around. No one wanted to talk about it anymore, except Lillian. She never forgot. 10 years later, she received a plain brown envelope in her mailbox. No return address. Inside, one photograph, black and white. Older group of 10 girls, maybe aged 12, 14, standing by a lake, all in matching dresses. a summer camp photo by the looks of it. But one girl, the one in the back, partially obscured by a tree, had no reflection in the water below her feet. Her face was blurred, like the camera itself refused to capture her. It was the Jane Doe, the same storm-grey eyes, the same dress. On the back of the photo, someone had scribbled in smeared ink. She came back, but not alone. Lillian brought it to the police. The photo was taken at Camp Elmridge, a summer retreat that had shut down in the late 80s after 3 campers drowned during a night swim. Bodies were never found. Local legend said the lake was cursed, that something pulled them down, not a current, something else. In 1992, another girl had gone missing there, also never found, and in 2003, the same year the Jane Doe arrived at the hospital, the lake had been dredged by state officials to make room for a new dam. During that process, they uncovered parts of 3 child-sized skeletons. Only one had a skull. The jaw was shattered, and the teeth broken. Lillian moved across the country 2 months after receiving the photo. But nightmares followed her. In every one, she saw the girl standing at the foot of her bed, soaking wet, whispering, "You heard me, but you didn't listen." One night, Lillian woke up coughing violently. Her throat burned. She ran to the bathroom and spit up a mouthful of black water. The sink smelled like algae, and on the bathroom mirror, drawn in dripping lines of lake mud, were 5 new words. "It's not done with you." The voice beneath. The floorboards. It started with the knocking. 1 soft tap, then 2. Always around 3:33 a.m. Carla and Jamie had just moved into the old house on Orchard Lane, a charming fixer-upper in a sleepy Massachusetts town. Wood-paneled walls, creaky floors, a basement that smelled like rust and old rain. They were trying to start over. Carla had just left the hospital. Grief therapy, they said, though no one wanted to talk about why. Jamie didn't push. He was just glad she was talking again. At first they thought it was the plumbing. The house was old. Everything creaked, but it wasn't the pipes. The knocks always came from the floorboards, right below their bed, 3 nights in a row. Same time. 3:33 a.m. Carla started waking up from dreams she couldn't remember, soaked in sweat. Heart pounding. Jamie slept like a rock. He didn't hear it, or pretended not to. On the 4th night, she pressed her ear to the wooden floor, right above where the knocking came from. This time, she didn't hear knocking. She heard whispering, a woman's voice, croaking, wet, like someone trying to speak. "Through a mouthful of water, Carla," it said. "You left me." That morning, Carla ripped up the rug in their bedroom and found a series of long, deep gouges carved into the floor, like fingernails dragging across the boards. Jamie said it was probably damage from furniture being dragged by the last owners. But Carla remembered the realtor saying the house had been empty for over 20 years. She didn't say anything, just nodded. But that night she slept on the couch. The whispering followed her there. 2 weeks later, Jamie had to leave town for a conference. Carla stayed alone in the house for the first time. She didn't sleep. Around midnight, she heard footsteps in the hallway, light, careful, almost curious. She got up, checked the doors, all locked. At 2:19 a.m., the kitchen faucet turned on by itself. The water came out black for 5 seconds, then clear. She took a photo of it, sent it to Jamie. No reply. At 3:33 a.m., the knocking returned. This time, it was louder, closer. Not beneath the bed, beneath her feet. She backed away, slowly, sat on the stairs, clutched her phone. Then her phone vibrated. Unknown number, 1 voicemail, no ringing, no missed call, just a single file. She played it on speaker. A woman's voice, hoarse and distant, whispered, "Let me out. You left me. They buried me under the house." Then the sound of gasping, like someone drowning. Then silence. Carla dropped the phone. She didn't sleep for the rest of the night. She just stared at the floor, waiting for the next knock. Jamie came back the next morning. She played the voicemail for him. It was gone. No file, no message, no record of any missed call. He didn't believe her. Said she was relapsing, that she was spiraling again. But something in his eyes said otherwise. He'd heard it too. They called a contractor to inspect the foundation. The man showed up late, grumbling about old plumbing and cold weather. He spent 10 minutes in the crawl space, then came out pale and shaking. "There's something down there," he said. "I don't know what it is, but I'm not staying to find out." He left without collecting payment. Carla looked down into the crawl space. There was something glinting in the dirt. She climbed down, flashlight trembling in her grip. It wasn't gold. It was a wedding ring. Her ring, the one she'd thrown into the river 2 years ago when her sister drowned. Her sister Leah had been everything Carla wasn't. Bright, bold, fearless. She'd always loved swimming, even as a child. That night, Leah had gone out into the water alone, refusing to come back when Carla begged her. The current took her. No body was ever found. Carla blamed herself. No one else did, except the voice. "You left me." She cleaned the ring and put it in a drawer. That night, she dreamed of Leah standing at the foot of her bed, dripping wet, eyes milky and lifeless, mouth open far too wide, and from that mouth came the knocking sound. 3 knocks, then 4, then 5, then blood. The room filled with it, pouring from Leah's mouth, flooding the floor, drowning Carla. She woke up screaming. The next day, Carla called the sheriff's office, asked if anyone had ever gone missing in their house. The dispatcher went silent for a moment, then quietly said, "Ma'am, that house isn't on our records." "What do you mean?" Carla asked. "It's been here for, I don't know what's there now, but that house burned down in 1974. There were no survivors." Carla hung up. Her hands were shaking. She went outside, looked at the house. It was still there, still whole, still real. She ran her hands along the siding, knocked on the walls, felt the cold, real, alive. But when she looked up at the roof, just for a moment, she saw Leah standing there, face soaked, eyes blank, ring on her finger, and in her hand, a phone, Carla's phone. That night, Carla packed a bag, told Jamie they had to leave. He said no. He wasn't going to run from shadows. At 3:33 a.m., the knocking came again, but it wasn't from under the floor. It was from inside the bedroom wall. Jamie grabbed a crowbar and tore open the plaster. Behind it, they found a space barely a foot wide, and in that space was a child-sized skeleton, curled into a fetal position, clutching something to its chest. A small, water-damaged notebook. They gave it to the police. The next morning, detectives confirmed what the notebook said. The skeleton had been there since 1974. The notebook was a journal. The name inside, Leah Dawson, Carla's sister. But that wasn't possible. Leah drowned in 2003. She wasn't even born until 1991, and yet the handwriting was identical. The drawings inside were of the lake, the same lullaby Carla kept hearing, and a page with the phrase written over and over, "Don't leave me in the dark." Carla checked her phone one last time before they left the house. One voicemail, no number. She pressed play. It was Jamie's voice. "Carla, I'm sorry. I had to. It wouldn't let us go. It said only one could leave." Then a scream, then the sound of rushing water, and then the knock. 1, 2, 3. Right behind her. She turned. Jamie wasn't there. The house was empty. Gone, replaced by trees, rotten, wood, a collapsed foundation, and the smell of wet earth. When they found her days later, she was wandering barefoot along the riverbank, soaked in mud, clutching a photo of 2 little girls, Carla and Leah. Both smiling, both wearing the same necklace. But only one had a reflection. The girl in the freezer Travis never liked hospitals, too white. Too clean, too quiet. He'd spent most of his childhood in and out of them, watching his mother fade away from cancer while nurses brought him sandwiches and forced smiles. So, working night shifts at St. Marla's Regional in Pennsylvania wasn't a choice. It was punishment. Or maybe it was fate, because that was the night the girl came in, and everything changed. It was 2:54 a.m. The ER was dead quiet. Just Travis, Nurse Vic, and a sleepy intern charting fake notes. Then came the alarm from the loading dock. Unattended arrival, it read. Travis checked the camera feed. A gurney sat outside in the snow. No ambulance, no staff, no driver. Just a lone stretcher with a zipped black body bag on top. It hadn't been there 2 minutes ago. He hesitated, then buzzed open the dock door. Cold air flooded in. He wheeled the gurney inside and zipped down. The bag inside was a girl, about 10 years old, pale, thin, wearing a hospital gown soaked in something dark. But she wasn't dead. Not entirely. Her eyes fluttered. Lips moved, no sound. Then he saw it. Her tongue had been cut out surgically, cleanly. He yelled for help. They rushed her to Trauma Bay 4. The girl didn't fight, didn't cry, just stared at the ceiling, mouthing silent words no one could understand. Nurse. Vic held her hand. She's freezing, she whispered. Her skin's like ice. Her temperature was 86 degrees, borderline hypothermic, but she had no frostbite. No bruising, no external wounds. Only one thing stood out, a small tattoo on her wrist, a number, 3 or 13. By sunrise, child services had been called. The girl remained silent, but scribbled something on the corner of a clipboard. 4 words. The Breezer girl lives. Then she drew a door and a face, mouthless, eyes hollow, teeth all wrong. When Travis saw it, he felt something twist behind his ribs, like he'd seen it before. The next night, things got worse. The power flickered during his shift. Temperature in the freezer dropped by 15 degrees in under 10 minutes. Travis walked past the morgue and heard something knock from inside one of the drawers. Once, twice, 3 times. When he checked, the drawer was empty, but the frost on the wall had a message scratched into it. Open her door. Later that shift, the girl vanished from her bed. Security footage showed her standing in the hallway at 3:33 a.m. Head tilted, eyes wide. Behind her, a shadow moved across the ceiling. No source, no object. Just a shape, long arms, twisted limbs, crawling toward her upside down. Then static. When the feed returned, the girl was gone. And so was a nurse. Marcy Bell, 42. They found her the next morning in the cafeteria freezer. Naked, mouth sewn, shut frozen solid. Authorities declared a lockdown. But by then, 5 other staff members had quit. Travis stayed. He needed answers. So he went to records, searched old files, abandoned patients, forgotten reports, and found it. Case number 313, a girl, age unknown, brought in during a blizzard in 1998, found alone in a shipping container outside a meat-packing plant. Body temperature, 87 degrees. No name, no family. Staff nicknamed her Freezer Girl. She never spoke. Until one night she screamed, for over 20 minutes, words no one understood. Then 3 people died, 2 nurses, 1 orderly, all frozen, all with mouths sealed shut. The girl vanished from her room, no trace, no leads, just a handprint. On the freezer door, fingers longer than human, palm facing inward, like something had been pulling her back inside. Travis heard something behind him. Turned, no one there, but on the floor, a wet footprint, small, bare, leading down the hallway, back toward the morgue. He followed, slowly, carefully. The freezer door was open, fog spilling out like breath from a giant mouth. Inside, all the drawers were shut, except one. Drawer dagger 3, empty, except for a small note, written in blood. Close the door, or she'll let him out. Then the drawer slammed, shut on its own. Travis turned and ran. He tried to tell security. But they thought he was cracking, so he printed the file from 1998, took the drawings, matched the symbols from her original case to the ones she scribbled now. They were the same, identical. A circle inside a square, an eye, and a word. Marok. He Googled it. Nothing, no results, no definitions, but on a conspiracy forum from 2004, buried in a comment thread about paranormal experiments in state hospitals, someone wrote, Marok isn't a name. It's a warning. It means cold that remembers. That night, the hospital's generator failed. Every camera froze at 3:33 a.m. When they came back online, 10 minutes of footage was missing, and a second girl was gone. Another nurse, fresh out of school. They found her kneeling in the parking lot, snow, rocking back and forth. She kept whispering, "The mouthless man watches from the ice." Then she bit off her own tongue. Travis had seen enough. He returned to the girl's room. She was sitting upright, eyes black, not from blood, from something deeper. Something void. He asked her what she wanted. She tilted her head and whispered for the first time, a voice that didn't belong to a child. It sounded cold. He lives in the quiet places, the in-between, beneath the ice, beneath the breath. Who? Travis asked. She smiled, and her teeth were wrong. Too many, too sharp. The one you let out. Then she pointed at him, at the scar on his hand. He'd gotten it when he was 7. Back when his mother was dying, he'd fallen through a frozen lake and been pulled out by a stranger. No one ever found who saved him. He always thought it was fate. Now, the girl whispered, he chose you. That night, under the ice, Travis fled the hospital. He never went back. But the dream followed him every night. The freezer door opens, and the thing crawls out. Not walking. Sliding, like it remembers what it's like to be trapped. And every morning a new voicemail, no caller ID, just the same sound, a knock, then a whisper, she let me out. Now you are next. Last week, Travis disappeared. His apartment was found frozen, walls covered in scratch marks. One phrase repeated on the mirror carved in frost, open her door. Open her door, open her door. They say Freezer Girl is still at St. Marla's, but no one visits her room anymore. It's always cold, and every so often if you press your ear to the floor, you'll hear a child whispering, he's under you. Don't. Answer the basement phone. Most houses don't have basements like that anymore, not with that kind of silence. That damp, slow, cold. That smell, like something died and never quite left. But the Harper house in rural Vermont wasn't most houses, and for Jeremy, who had inherited it from a father he barely remembered, it was the last place on earth. He wanted to be, especially after what happened to his mother. She died in that house, alone, locked in the basement, phone off the hook. No sign of a break-in, just one strange thing. Her fingernails had been torn off, and she had scratched something into the concrete wall, using bone if the coroner was right. Just one word. Answer. Jeremy didn't want to go back. But the will was clear. The house cannot be sold. It must remain in the family. He must return. Signed by his father, a man who disappeared when Jeremy was 3. Declared dead. Never found. Jeremy arrived in the rain, alone. The house looked older than it should have, like time had folded around it and refused to let it go. Windows fogged from the inside, front door unlocked. He walked in, silence, except for a faint hum. Coming from the basement, he remembered the stories. His mum used to say the phone rang at night. The one in the basement, rotary dial, disconnected from any line. No number, no service, but it still rang. And if you answered it, it learns your voice. She'd whispered once, drunk and trembling. Then it waits. Jeremy never believed her. Not really, until he found the phone again, still there, sitting on a tiny table in the middle of the basement floor, covered in dust. Receiver off the hook. Just like the police found it when they discovered his mother. Jeremy picked it up, deadline, no dial tone. He placed it back in the cradle. Then it rang. He nearly dropped it. No one else was in the house. The power barely worked. There was no line. He backed away, didn't answer, went back upstairs, tried to sleep in his childhood room, tried not to think about the words scratched into the wall or how the phone sounded, hungry. That night, he dreamed, a voice whispering through the phone, "It's cold down here. I hear you upstairs." Then a knock. From inside the walls, 3 slow knocks, then silence. The next morning, the phone rang again. 13 a.m. He unplugged it. It rang anyway. He called the phone company. They confirmed there was no line running into the house at all. The phone should not work. Jeremy tried to ignore it, tried to clean the kitchen, look through old photos, pretend the walls weren't closing in, until he found a letter, postmarked 1989, addressed to his father. No return address. Inside, a note, typed, blurry. A little blood on the corner. "Do not answer again. You know the rules. It wants out. And it will lie, no matter what voice it uses. Don't believe it." That night, the phone rang 7 times. Jeremy stayed upstairs, counted each ring like heartbeats. On the 8th, it stopped. Silence. Then a creak on the stairs. He grabbed the baseball. A bat, held his breath. Nothing. Next morning, mud on the stairs. Footprints. Bare. Small. Like a child's. But Jeremy didn't have children. He lived alone. The prints stopped just outside his bedroom door. He finally called the local priest, an old man named Father Kessler. When he heard the address, he went quiet, then said, "Keep the phone off the hook, I'll come by." That night, it rang 37 times. At midnight, Jeremy heard crying from the basement. It sounded like his mother, whispering his name, begging, "Please, just answer. It's so dark down here." He held the bat and stood outside the basement. No tears welled in his eyes. He knew it wasn't her, couldn't be, but her voice. It was exact. He nearly turned the knob. Then he remembered the word she carved into the wall. Answer. Not a plea, a warning. Father Kessler arrived at sunrise. Jeremy led him to the basement. The priest went pale when he saw the phone. Said he hadn't seen one of those in decades. Wouldn't say what he meant, just took out a small vial of holy water and began to pray. Then the phone rang. Father Kessler screamed, dropped the vial. Water sizzled on the concrete like acid. He clutched his ears and whispered, "It knows I'm here." Then the receiver flew off the hook by itself, hung in the air, rotated slowly toward Jeremy. A voice spoke from the receiver. "Clear, calm. Jeremy, it's Dad. Open the door." He froze. The priest grabbed his arm. "No," he said. "It's not him." Jeremy shook his head. "But it sounds like it's not," the priest said. "It speaks in dead voices, ones you've forgotten, or ones you wish you hadn't." Then the phone whispered again. "You were there. That day at the lake. You let me in." Jeremy stepped back. "What lake?" The priest's face turned to ash. "You let it in too?" Suddenly the basement light exploded. Glass rained down. Shadows poured out of the corners, not shaped like people, but like things that remember being people. The phone screamed, 1,000 voices at once. Jeremy slammed. The basement door shut. They nailed it closed. Salted the floor, then burned the phone, or tried to. It melted like plastic, but the sound never stopped. Even now the house stands empty, basement locked, but sometimes at 3:33 a.m. the neighbors say they hear a ring, just once. Then a voice through the wall, not yelling, not screaming, just asking, calm, patient, "Will someone please answer?" Jeremy left town the next day, but before he did, he called Father Kessler one last time, said the voice had started following him, that it now rang through his dreams, through TVs, radios, dead phones, that every voice eventually turned into his, Father's. The priest asked one final question. "Did you ever answer it, Jeremy?" There was a pause, then static, then one last word. "Yes." The sleep clinic. that recorded my death. They said it would just be one night, that I'd check into the Greystone sleep clinic, get hooked up to wires, maybe snore through a few hours, and they'd tell me why I hadn't slept a full night in 3 years. But I didn't check out, not really, because whatever woke up in that room wearing my face wasn't me. I wasn't crazy. At least, not at first. Insomnia had crept in after the accident, a 6-car pile-up in winter. I walked away with nothing but a seatbelt bruise. The man in the car next to mine didn't. He bled out, still gripping the steering wheel, eyes locked on mine through the glass. No airbag, just pain, and something that looked like relief. Like he was glad it was him, not me. I haven't slept since. Dr. Holm was the attending physician at Greystone. Warm voice, cold smile. The kind of man who makes your skin itch just by standing still. Most of our patients report complete rejuvenation after a single night, he said, as he led me down the sterile hallway. We don't just study your dreams. We help you. Reset them. I asked what that meant. He just said, you'll understand when you wake up. Room 3A smelled like cleaning chemicals and something older underneath. Something wet. The bed was too white, like bone left out in the snow. Wires trailed down from the ceiling, cameras in each corner. A screen above the door blinked the word. Monitoring, active. Then the lights dimmed. The last thing I remember clearly was the nurse pressing something cold to my temple and whispering, "Try not to fight what comes through." I woke up screaming, at least. I thought I did, until I saw myself still lying on the bed, breathing, still wired up, peaceful. But I was outside my body, floating, weightless, unseen, trapped behind the one-way glass, watching me. Sleep. I pounded on the glass. No one heard me. Then he opened his eyes, not me, him, the one wearing me. His movements weren't right, too smooth, too confident. I don't move like that. I haven't in years. He sat up, looked directly at the camera, then smiled. I watched me dress, check out, and walk right past the front desk. He didn't flinch when the receptionist asked, "Did you sleep well?" He just said, "I slept like the dead." I stayed behind the glass, screaming silently, for hours, days, maybe longer. Time bent in that place. There were no clocks, no shadows. Just that endless loop of watching him wear my life like a tailored suit. Then I wasn't alone. Others started appearing, faces half-remembered from dreams, some missing parts, a mouth stitched shut, a face made entirely of teeth, eyes replaced. With static, they stared at me, and then they whispered, "You dreamed it wrong. You opened too wide. You let him in." I learned the rules too late. If you dream in the Greystone Clinic, something can dream back. If you see yourself sleep, you're already lost. Never, ever wake up in room 3A, because it won't be you that does. They kept showing me things. Visions, other people who came to the clinic and never came home. A woman who woke up mute, only able to scream in dreams. A boy who came in for sleepwalking and walked through a mirror. A man who never woke up, but whose family swears they spoke to him the next day. Even though his body is still in a coma, I saw footage of myself, the other me, living my life, going to work, visiting my mother, laughing with my girlfriend. But his eyes are wrong, too still, like someone looking out, not in. Then one night I slipped back. I woke up, or so I thought, back in room 3A. The cameras were off. The wires were gone. I stumbled out into the hallway, heart racing, body numb. Everything looked normal again. I thought I'd escaped, until I saw the mirror, and he was still in it. Smiling, I touched the glass. It was cold. He raised a hand, then pointed behind me. I turned. There was nothing, just the hallway. Empty, silent, but when I looked back at the mirror, he was gone. I ran, out the front doors, into the morning air. My car was still parked outside, frost on the windshield, keys in my coat pocket. It all felt too easy. I drove straight home, but my girlfriend, Claire, didn't hug me. She just stared, then whispered, "Why are you back?" I laughed, nervously. "I finished the sleep study." She shook her head. "No, you didn't." She walked to the bedroom and locked the door behind her. "I haven't slept since, but he still visits, in reflective surfaces, in dreams I'm not supposed to have. He lives in the gaps, waits in the static. Sometimes I see him walking down the street, looking just like me, only more confident, more alive. He's better at being me than I ever was." I called the clinic. Disconnected. I drove there, empty lot. No signs of construction. Just torn grass, broken concrete, and a single scorched sign that reads, "Greystone Sleep Clinic. Do not return." Man in a coat was standing in the field. He looked tired, dead-eyed. He said, "Which room did you wake up in?" I told him, 3A. His face went pale. "You're not real," he said. "You're one of them." I tried to explain, but he ran. Now I wonder, what if he was right? What if I didn't come back either? What if there's no one left to wake up? Claire's gone, left in the middle of the night. No note, just one thing left on my pillow, a photograph of me sleeping, and behind me in the dark, someone else under the sheets. I took the photo to a specialist. She said it was real, untampered. But when I asked her to scan the face in the background, she turned pale. "It's a match," she whispered. "A match for who?" She hesitated. "You. It's also you. I've destroyed every mirror in my house. I unplug my TV at night. I sleep with the lights on, or try to. But even then, I hear footsteps at 3:33 a.m., not outside my door, inside the room. I know he's close. I know he's watching. And one night soon, I'll hear his voice say, 'You dreamed it wrong. Let me show you how to finish it.' And when I wake up, I might not be me anymore. The house that calls everyone." Back when Jenna was 10, she told her mother she would never go back to that house, not after what she saw in the attic, not after the screaming stopped, not after her father stopped being her father and became something that stood too still in doorways and watched her sleep with unblinking eyes. 23 years later, Jenna returned to bury her mother, and the house was waiting. It started before the funeral. The letter came in an envelope with no stamp, just her name, written in handwriting that looked like her own, but slightly older. Inside was a single sentence: "You left someone behind." She burned the letter, but the words wouldn't leave. The house sat on the edge of forgotten woods, shivering under decades of moss and mold. Every step up the front porch made Jenna's body scream to turn back. She didn't. She had no family left. No friends who remembered the full story. No one to tell her not to open that door. So she did, and it opened like it had been waiting for her hand. Inside, nothing had changed. The same torn wallpaper, the same glass figurines on the dusty mantel, and the smell. God, the smell. Rotten sugar and rainwater, and something that reminded her of long dead flowers. She wasn't there 10 minutes before the first whisper came. It echoed down the hallway from her old bedroom. "Jenna, Jenna, come see." It sounded like her little brother, but Caleb died in that house, or something wearing him did. She found his door exactly how she remembered, slightly ajar, stuffed bunny on the floor just outside it. She kicked it open. Empty, except the window was open, and someone had written in the frost on the glass, "We never left." She told herself it was her imagination. Stress, grief, a trauma response. So she went to the attic, the place where it all began. The stairs groaned like they remembered. Her weight halfway up, she felt something press behind her, a cold force like static or breath. She turned fast. Nothing, but she wasn't alone. Not really, not ever. The attic door opened on its own. Inside, the room pulsed with memory, dust drifting like ash in the cold. Grey light. She stepped in and saw the chair, the same wooden chair where her father used to sit. Mumbling to something in the dark, she was 6 when she first saw it crawl down the wall behind him. She was 8 when she heard it whisper in her ear that her mother would never wake up. She was 10 when she locked the attic door and swore never to open it again. There was something in the chair now, not a person, a shape, a shadow stitched together with her father's silhouette, but wrong, longer limbs, head tilted too far. It smiled without lips. Then it whispered, "She's still here." Jenna, underneath. She ran down the stairs, into the kitchen, out into the backyard, but the gate wouldn't open. Not because it was locked, but because it wasn't there anymore. Only endless trees, and the trees weren't normal. Every trunk had a face, mouths, open eyes shut. She saw Caleb, she saw her mother, she saw herself. The house called her back inside, and she obeyed, because it was the only place left, because part of her always wanted to know what she had forgotten. In the basement, the floorboards were loose. She pried them up with her bare hands, splinters tearing into skin below. She found a second staircase, one she didn't remember, one that shouldn't exist. She descended. The walls were wet, breathing. Every step down echoed like thunder in a coffin. At the bottom, the floor was covered in mirrors, all cracked, all covered in dust. She looked into one and saw a younger version of herself, eyes wide, screaming. The girl in the mirror reached out, and Jenna felt it on her arm. Cold fingers, familiar grip. The reflection whispered, "You left us here. We waited. We screamed. You forgot." Jenna fell backward, shattering a mirror. When she stood, she saw the truth. Each mirror was a memory, not just hers. The house had fed on everyone. Whoever entered. It had kept a piece of them all, trapped in reflections, shadows, dreams. She saw a teenage boy burning alive in a dream that never ended, a crying woman holding her own severed tongue, a man stabbing at his own shadow over and over as it laughed, a child whispering to an invisible friend that grew. Fangs, her mother, holding a knife, crying, saying, "I didn't want to." Jenna smashed every mirror until she found the last one. It wasn't cracked. It showed the attic, and in it, a small girl, kneeling beside the chair, sobbing. It was her, 6 years old, looking right at Jenna, mouthing the words, "Let me out." The floor split beneath her. She fell through the house, through time, through memory. When she opened her eyes, she was back in the attic, but now it was on fire, and the chair was empty. Her younger self stood in the corner, smiling, but not a child's. Smile, a predator's. Then she spoke in her father's voice. "You didn't bury the house, Jenna. You buried me." The girl lunged. Jenna screamed. Black. She woke in the yard. Daylight, a neighbor standing over her. "Are you okay?" he asked. She blinked, looked down. Her arms were clean. No blood, no splinters, no sign of the house ever existing. She turned. Only wild grass and trees. No building. No driveway, no porch, nothing. But in her pocket was a key, rusty old, attached to a paper tag that read 3A, one more night. She moved out of town, started fresh, but she never sleeps. Because some nights she dreams of the attic, and every mirror in her new house is starting to show a little girl, one who looks just like her. Final twist. Each story was connected. Every character visited, or was touched by, the same cursed presence. A house, a clinic. Voice on the phone, a whisper in sleep. They were all echoes from a single source, a dream that went too deep. A place where identity fractures, a haunting that chooses you, and once you hear it, once it sees you, there's no such thing as waking. Up at the end.